have to wait until we're up live? Okay, we're
We're
on.
all set to go.
All righty. So I'll read the preamble and then we'll get right to it. I think I will anyway. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Historical Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner: going to www.southboroughtown.com, remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And call a meeting to order at 6:15. How's that for speed reading? So we have administrative approving the minutes from August 18th and September 22nd, which I got. Amanda, thank you. I looked through them. They look good to me. Does anybody have any changes?
I did not.
I do not.
Okay. So I guess this first someone has to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I so moved.
We're going to approve the minutes from August 18th, 2020 and September 22nd, 2020. All in favor? I'll do the roll call. Annie?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And Amanda?
Yep.
And I vote aye. That's done.
Before we move on, I don't think the meeting minutes from July 28th have been approved, and that's just
Oh.
me, you and Jim who were in this meeting who were attendees of that meeting. And I've shared them with everybody. Sorry.
Okay. You shared them now? Or you?
I shared them when I wrote them in July.
Oh, okay.
And we were gonna vote on them in August and we didn't for some reason, I don't remember. I don't think they've been approved.
Okay.
But you should have them in you should have access to them in your email or a Google Drive.
All right. Well, I guess, I mean, we can't really all look at them right now.
Well, I think we need Kate to vote on them anyway because
Yeah.
So I just want to mention it so that we
Okay, we'll put those on for the next, the agenda for the next meeting. I had the treasurer's report on here, but Kate can't make it, so we'll just scratch that. Let's switch 3 and 4 and let's talk about the hiring of administrative assistants for the Southborough Historical Commission. Michael has been kind enough to recruit Dean Lomsa, who takes incredible minutes, to accept the role of clerk secretary for Historical Commission. Michael, do you have more information on that you want to talk about, like how much it will cost? And
Well, we haven't offered Dean any money yet. I'm told that the town pay rate is $75, and I hope that's acceptable. The issue was simply that it is very hard to participate in these meetings and take notes simultaneously.
I know that from experience, yes.
Yes, exactly. And I've tried it and failed. I was briefly secretary many years ago, and it was just a disaster. It's like who said what, where, when.
Yeah.
So as we move into more official capacities in terms of dealing with various properties in town, I think it's become really important to have almost very accurate minutes along the lines of that are more than our minutes, that are more along the lines of the historical planning board and the other boards that deal with properties, just so that we have some level of being able to say who said what to whom.
Yeah.
And I speak from incredible experience because Dean actually just attended one of our historical society meetings as just an interested observer, and I saw him. He was sitting there scribbling notes. And he was just there. I mean, he wasn't in any capacity. And I said, wow, you take great notes. And he does. He writes incredible minutes for us. And I think he would be a huge, huge addition. So I would make a motion to adopt his services. And, we'll work out with Mark Purple or whoever it is, whatever paperwork and other issues. I'm not sure who's the administrator, presumably Mr. Purple.
I think so.
The
Well-
town, I believe, yes. And
Yeah.
I second the motion.
Well, wait, okay, let's, I just wanted to, so the money will come out of our budget for historical commission, our 2,500 a year, whatever it is we get.
Yes.
Or
but-
will the town just kind of,
No, the money will come out of our budget. However, the budget requirements for next year are due,
do?
and I would
Correct.
suggest adding that amount into
Yes.
our budget for next year.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we, yeah, and so. And Dean you would be available to do letters as well as needed, or along with minutes, because we do have a lot of correspondence that goes out and sometimes it's time sensitive. So I don't know,
Who at the current time takes care of letters?
the secretary.
So would I be working for the secretary? Because I wasn't planning on letters. I was planning on the note taking.
Mhm.
So that perhaps that's for a discussion for another day.
Yes, okay,
Because that's not in my consideration at this point.
okay,
I work full time. I'm not sure that I could handle both
okay,
letters and doing minutes of the meeting.
okay. Okay, well, minutes would be a huge relief.
And Dean, if it's any help, the letters we're describing largely are templated already.
Correct, yeah, like someone would write them and it would just be,
It's a matter of adapting something we've used for another purpose to the correct nomenclature or details.
I think actually what it really comes down to, Dean, is more of nagging us to make sure that the correspondence goes out. It's just a question of making sure that that what we said that we were going to do
yeah,
is done. And so, if maybe the minutes could contain an action list
mhm.
that you could circulate right after the meeting. That way we would have that. So,
Absolutely.
That sounds really good. And I think it'll be great for Amanda to be able to participate more fully in the meetings and not be
Yeah.
typing all the time. All right, that's super. Thank you, Dean, for taking this on. And Michael, you made the motion
I did.
and
And
Jim, you
I-
seconded it. Let's do the vote then. All in favor of hiring Dean Lomsas to take minutes at our Southborough Historical Commission meetings. Annie,
Aye.
Jim,
I,
Amanda,
Yes.
Michael,
Absolutely.
great. Thank you. Welcome aboard, Dean.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Dean. Yay! Boy, do we need you.
We do. It has become a more, we used to have pretty simple minutes. And it has become a little bit more detailed, time consuming.
We used to have pretty simple agendas too.
Yep, that's true.
I think I told you back in the 90s, our entire agenda consisted of whether or not we were going to reprint more copies of Fences of Stone.
Yeah,
Which is,
yeah,
continual discussion. Should we
those
print
were the
more copies?
days.
Yeah, those were the days.
All right, so organizational changes. So in light of this, Amanda has expressed a desire to not continue as secretary because of obligations and time constraints, which I fully understand. And I have also decided not to continue as chair because of time constraints and obligations. With a full-time job and children at home, it's just a lot to respond to all of the things that seem to be coming up more and more in a timely manner. I'm hopeful. Michael has very nicely said that he would be willing to take the role on, which I think is terrific. Happy to, continue and do my part and, keep the quorum up. But the level of responsibility that the chair now has is just a little bit beyond my reach right now.
And I didn't even have to nominate him. Look at that. But I do.
I second Michael's nomination. So I think we need to do a little bit of voting right now. And I don't know if we need a secretary at this point.
As long as we have a quorum and Dean to take notes, unless it's an official part of the charter. Michael, do you recall if there's ever such a definition?
No, we've always had one, but I don't believe they have a secretary at the planning board. I mean, we can ask Kate how this happens. I think once you have someone handling it, whether it's paid or on board, that role, I think Dean essentially becomes the secretary. I know we can find out the original title, but I don't necessarily know that you're mandated to have anything except a chairman, frankly, and perhaps vice chair.
Yeah.
Even that I'm not quite sure of.
I don't know either. So I think for the purposes of tonight, we can just, acknowledge that Amanda has stepped down as secretary and thank her for her hard work that she's done all this. How long's it been? Like 2 years, 3 years?
I have no idea.
Too long?
Too long. I don't know.
That's a tough job for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's not, I mean, it would be easier if I had the resources to allocate towards it, but I just
Exactly.
I simply don't. So
Amanda, are you able to stay on as a member or do you need to withdraw?
yeah, I'd like to stay on and at the very least continue until my appointment ends when it's supposed to end, which is next June.
Good.
But I'd like to keep the quorum up. I think we should try to keep membership high if we can.
Yeah.
Good.
Great. So tonight, I think we just need to elect a new chair. And the motion has been made, it's been seconded. Correct?
Yes.
So let's vote.
Right,
All in favor?
Who made the motion
Jim.
motion by Jim to elect Michael as chair?
As chair.
Correct.
I so move.
And who seconded it?
Oh, I guess we didn't have a second. I will second it. Or maybe I did already.
I'll say, you can go ahead.
All right, let's take a vote on electing Michael Wyson as new chair of Southborough Historical Commission. Annie,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Amanda, it's gone. Michael, can you?
Yes, I vote.
I vote aye.
Aye.
Did Amanda vote before she left? Or
I don't think so.
dang. Oh, there she is.
Yes.
Yes, she votes yes.
And with And with that rousing vote, I thank you all.
Oh,
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
nice to have you here.
It really, oh, boy, you don't know how nice.
Well,
Tough job.
yeah, well, we'll find out, won't we? Been hanging around here for long enough.
Okay, now, next we have, let's see, we have the vote for 61 Breakneck Hill. I'm going to bring Peter Bemis in if he. Hi, Peter.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
There you
Thank
are.
you, Rebecca.
You're welcome. All right, Michael, take it away.
Oh. Oh.
Sorry, Michael. Well, I don't mind starting if you want. There's no root cellar at 61
I thought you were going
Road,
to.
but it's on the list.
I thought you were going to continue, Rebecca. That's fine. All right. So if you want me to take it away, it's fine. So I think all we need to do here is simply issue, what is it called?
A notice.
Yes, a notice of, I always want to say non-complicity, but that's not the right term.
Non-compliance is, or
No,
it's not,
Non-applicability.
that's the one.
This root cellar, this mysterious root cellar, I'm not quite sure where this came from. Peter, do you know, is it there?
No, well, I've been involved with Ray Davis. Well, now he's deceased, but with the property back in the late 80s, and I don't recall it ever being there. But this was an old property. There were a number of things here at the farm, and there was a hurricane. I think it's 38 is like the hurricane that struck Southborough, and my guess is that probably was its demise. But it had been on this list and in some shape or manner, and it's just carried forward ever since the list was created.
Well, it must have been still around in 2000 because they would have charted it at that point, because they did that research, but they may have just. I
understand, but I got to tell you, I did Ray's septic system in the mid 90s. I mean, it was before Paul Borden got involved in the property, and I don't recall there ever being a root cellar out there. So it's strange.
Yeah, I just, this list needs to be updated.
That's probably what this tells you, is this is one of probably many.
Well, the problem is, it costs a huge amount of money to update these lists. And we have to have voter approval to do that. So the last time this was updated, it was 2015 in some sort of minor way. We'll have to talk about that in the future. But I mean, speaking personally, I've been on the property too with Farmer Ray. He was a great guy. I remember him terrifically. I don't remember seeing this. I don't think it's, since someone knows where it is, and it's a root cellar, which is, kind of underground. I mean, I have no problems giving this letter of non-applicability. Does anyone else?
None whatsoever. No problems.
So I move that we provide a letter of non-applicability for 61 Breakneck.
A second? Someone has a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Rebecca seconded. All righty, this is going to be fun. So, Annie?
You're muted.
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Amanda? Amanda says aye, I think, but she's also muted, nodding her head. I say aye too, so voted unanimously. Peter, we'll get that letter out to you. Well, actually,
Done, isn't it? Or is it?
I think
An email to Lori would be just perfect, because that's all I think, the letter can be forthcoming, but just a quick email to Lori would satisfy her at this point.
Okay, all right, fine. So we'll
thank you.
email her.
Would you like me to take care of that email tomorrow?
I would love to, if you would do that.
I'll do that.
Okay, so that's great. So you'll have that tomorrow, Peter, and Godspeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck, Michael. Be careful what you wish for.
Who said I wished for anything?
Exactly. Take care. Thank you very much.
Peter,
Bye,
thanks.
Michael. Or bye, Peter. Okay, that's great. Last is the,
15 Main Street. Before we get there, do we want to talk a little bit about the language, the revisions, or do you want to push that to another meeting? Or
well,
because I did get the questions that were circulated,
yes.
and some of those questions actually are directly answered by some of these proposed changes. So-
Right, and some have been answered already.
And some have been answered already. So, I mean, I'm open to suggestions on this.
I mean, the documents, I think, would be very helpful in cases like this. Although, I guess the only question that was raised is, are we able to now issue a clarification document, or is the content of the last hearing what we only have to work with? In other words, we had a verbal instruction. We did get a letter back that Rebecca circulated with about 7 or 8 questions on it. Can we issue this as a clarification? If so, I think we should discuss the content. If we don't feel like we should or can say, here's what we really meant in writing, then we can put it off. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, absolutely. The revisions of this stuff are, by and large, with one exception, which is the percentage of the demolition, exactly what has been written previously. It just was written in a different format or in multiple places. We also had a flowchart, one sheet. Do you remember that, Rebecca?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Seem-
that disappeared somewhere. That also contained this information. And just so for you guys, part and parcel of the demolition delay bylaw is the provision that allows the Historical Commission to promulgate rules and regulations pertaining to the process, as long as they don't violate state law. So we had a meeting now 2.5 years ago. I guess it's hard to believe, but I'm the only surviving person from that meeting since we lost our dear Kate, with Aldo. And he went over more or less what we could do and what we couldn't do. And essentially, the issue is that he encouraged us to publish clarifications of specific points on this. For instance, can I rip out my windows without talking to the Historical Commission? Answer, yes. Can I, what work constitutes, a trigger for this kind of thing? And that's up for the Historical Commission to decide and to publicize, so that people don't get caught up in problems or processes like this business with the letter of applicability, which we've never had need to issue, but frankly should have on deck anyway, because if people ask us about properties, you can just simply off one of these things and then they have it on record. So anyway, what I had sent to you guys, so I think maybe we should in fact look at this at least now briefly. Do you agree? Okay. The easiest one to look at in some ways is the revised action plan. Essentially, what this is essentially the very good work that went before here to put this all together, because I know this was no small effort to create it in its originality. And what I did was just slightly reorder the information to conform to what this missing. We had this great flow chart that we used at the initial town meeting, and I have no idea where it went. And I don't have a copy of it.
It was on the old website for the commission.
It was on the old website, yes,
Yeah.
which appeared when it transferred to the town, and so it's all very
Yeah.
confusing. So the first paragraph section, the intent and purpose, is exactly the same. It's word for word from what the original was. And I sent this over to Jim to look at, who is a terrific editor, by the way. If you ever need a second job after retirement, Jim, you could take up editing because you're a terrific editor.
I had a great 4th grade teacher. It stuck with me.
Obviously so. We've added one section here. I've added this action plan specifics that sets a 30-day timeline for expectations that when we expect the documentation to be back. Because again, remember the clock is rolling. So technically we shouldn't be considering these applications without all the information that's been requested.
Mhm.
So this says that we expect this to be within 30 days. And if it's incomplete or partial, we won't consider it, and it just extends the delay. Because I think it's really critical to get this information together in a packet. And the other thing that we're requesting is that this come together as a PDF electronic packet to bring this into our COVID times, so that this is something that we can share, that can become part of the public record, that has, parts A, B, C, D, E, F. So there's no question about this. I think it's really important to take as our model the planning board, which is supremely organized in terms of its bookkeeping records and what it shows to the applicants about where they are and what they're doing. So I'd love to follow that model. So we adopted that under the specifics. The statement of reasons is the same, except it just lists a few examples because I thought it was a little unclear as to what we were asking for. The redevelopment plans are precisely as were in the previous version. I will say that I think that this is pretty strict in reading that, and I think that Jim had a comment to me personally too. I don't necessarily know that. Oops, my monitor keeps turning on. I don't necessarily know that you can get all permits. I understand what the intent here was. I don't necessarily know that you can get all permits for a property beforehand. Maybe for large developments you could, but for building and renovations and small developments. So
Yeah.
I think that language is okay, but. Let me just move this over here because my monitor is going bonkers. I think the language is okay, but I think we should think about maybe tightening this up. But for now, I think this is what was already published, and so we can continue to go with it. The property documentation is exactly the same. It's just slightly reordered. Tax assessment, mortgage appraisal, set of photographs. I simplified this language to make the photographs digital. Again. And we don't need 7 physical sets of these things. I mean, just one PDF that we can circulate to everybody, I think is fine. The language is exactly the same with the exception of removing the 7 sets. Map, same. Plot plan, same. Signatures of proof of ownership is the same. I did add the suggestion of legal friends of mine that if the owner wishes a third party to represent him or her before the commission, a notarized power of attorney needs to be part of this packet.
Perfect.
So I think that needs to be added in.
Yeah.
So and incorporating a little bit of the flow chart issues here. Once the materials have been gathered, the commission will meet to review the materials. If the commission decides that the structure's fallen into such decrepitude that it can't be restored, the commission may vote to allow the demolition to proceed. So that's the out. And we've done that historically where we've gotten the materials together. They've come and made the presentation. They've said we said it was historically significant, but the condition of it was too far gone. There was too much financial burden. There was whatever. So we've given folks the out there. However, if there are possibilities for restoration, then the process continues, which is exactly as the rule is now. It just says this more clearly. And then we did add this whole section about should the applicant be unwilling to consider the renovation. And again, this is exactly what we've said all along. And it was in this missing flow chart, but is now just stated. And it also details the obligations of what we would expect from the broker who is representing the property. Previously, we've run into a problem where the broker did not want to share the information, refused to list who came to see the house, what the price were there any offers, all that type of information, which is really critical to this process. So again, this is within our purview to ask for this information, and again, to make a level playing field for everybody. This is another concern I've had, to make sure that everybody gets the same information. So we're not, accused of any sort of bias. It states explicitly what we've said verbally, with that active sales effort for the property may under no circumstances be less than 120 days, which for a property these days is not particularly long. Good faith is the same. Notice of determination is the same. Added a little section at the end saying, hey, we're here to help. And all of this stuff has to be done due to open meeting, has to be done via letter or email or in person. One of the things that we've gotten in trouble with before is he said, she said, because people called and one person said this and blah, blah, blah. So, nixe ixnay on the phone conversation parts of this, and it just needs to all be public record, because we're dealing with folks' houses. So,
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, so that is the revised action plan information. Again, this is exactly as it has been before, but just in what I hope is a clearer reformatting of this that allows people specifically to understand what their obligations are. And also to understand that if we don't get this information, the process stops. I mean, it stops until we get this information. So again, that was in the previous language, but this really needs to be made clear. That's all I have to say about this. I would love to vote to accept this as the documentation that we send out to folks going forward. We can also send it out to folks that are previously or currently in front of us, just as a clarification, because I think it's clear. But I'd like to adopt this plan as our official documentation that will be then sent by us to anyone coming for under demolition delay under the bylaw.
Michael, would that
you all-
include, sorry?
I'm sorry, Rebecca. I was going to ask, has everyone had an opportunity to read through the documents as Michael and I have?
Is there any discussion about questions or points or specifics?
I just wanted to clarify that the final page with the before planning to demolish, here are some important things to keep in mind. Are you including that in this?
No, that's the next
okay.
piece.
All right. Okay. Then
that's the next piece. So this is no, that's right. This is the letter that goes out, that we've had sent previously.
Yep.
And it just changes the language a little into a little more clarified.
I think it looks great.
Is there any benefit to having this posted on the website, or this document be available as well as the other one that you sent? Because it does outline the process really well.
It does.
Yes, I had originally planned it actually to be both this letter and to ask them to put it up on the website.
Mhm.
But again, all this information out there ahead of time, I think would be really helpful to us. So I will ask to find out how that happens, to send them a formatting of this, as a page on our website. I think we need to take a little look on, also on the town website as to, sort of what's up there. There's not a lot. They took bits and pieces of stuff, and it's fine, but we need to, work on that at some point. But this should go in large part up there, I think, as a intent. So I guess that means I'm asking for a motion to accept this as our official documentation.
I move to make this our official notification document.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call. Annie?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Amanda?
Yes.
I vote aye. All right.
Yay.
So the action plan has been accepted. Now we're going to move on to what is the second document called?
Sort of like an FAQ.
Guidelines here, yeah. So one of the things, with all the questions back and forth with the building commissioner, I thought it would be really cool to have a very simple one sheet that she could send out as a PDF to everybody who applies for a demolition permit, regardless of whether or not it's on the list or not. So if you get a demolition permit application, you get this sheet. And it says the following things. For planning to demolish a structure, here's the things you need to know. Tells people that there's a demolition delay bylaw in Southborough. It notifies them as their responsibility to find out whether or not their property is subject to this bylaw, as it is the responsibility of every citizen in the common right to know the law. Just saying, oh, I didn't know that was the law, doesn't get you out of not following the law. As I found occasionally, to my horror, when I've been speeding like 55 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, many years ago when I was young, of course, many years ago.
Sure.
I'm sure, yes. Well, now the car beeps at you, so you don't have to worry about that, and your phone beeps at you too. It says speed limit, speed limit. So the next part, however, is new. And it says, for the purposes of the bylaw, the commission has determined that the total, and this is up for discussion, the total or substantial exterior destruction is defined as any change that will permanently alter any facade of any historically significant structure viewable from any public way by more than 25%. This is an attempt to define substantial, which is a question that we were asked today by folks on Main Street, and takes a percentage approach that is used in the adaptive reuse bylaw, percentage of square footage. This percentage is just a percentage. I personally feel that a smaller percentage is easier to deal with because as you get to larger percentages, it becomes harder and harder to define this. But this is open for a discussion. So who has anything to say about this?
I looked into, see if I could find a definition of substantial, and went online, and that there's a lot of similar adjectives or adverbs, whatever it may be, but nothing that really had a percentage that said more than half, less than half, or whatever. I think 25%, while it really helps control the scenario that we're trying to focus on, this historic building, it should not really be damaged or dramatically altered. But to the point that we're willing to say, it's okay to put in a drive or a fence or swimming pool or anything else like that on a historic property, that's a fair amount of modernization. So to me, it would seem that if you said, and again, this is just another discussion number, if you said more than 50% of the facade based on square footage alteration, that would say that you're keeping the look of the building largely intact with, with a threshold for what goes past that. I mean, if you change the windows out, that can make the building look quite a bit different because there was nothing said about having to keep the same size or shape, right?
Well, remember, we've exempted window changes.
That's why
from the consideration. We've exempted paint changes. We've exempted, cosmetic things of any time. We've exempted energy improvement issues.
Right.
What we're talking, and landscaping stuff isn't our purview. Fences, pools, any of those things we have no say over. Sidewalks, stairs, steps, none of that stuff. But what we're talking about is the facade, literally the walls, the appearance of the walls of the houses, alterations to that. So if you want to sub out your windows and replace them with energy efficient ones, obviously we would love you to do it with, historically appropriate style, but it's up to you. As long as you're not changing the shape, we don't have anything to say about this, and cutting into the structure. But, if you're taking a single window on a, Greek Revival house and putting in, 3 bay windows, that's a substantial alteration. So, I think there we would want to have some level of say. And the only way that this is historically done with most other commissions is some percentage of the actual square footage of the facade. So as we're looking at this, it's like, okay, the front of your house is 1,000 square feet. If you're altering more than 250 square feet of it, you need to come talk to us.
I think that I've seen that in a lot of other demo delay bylaws in different towns. They do specify a percentage of the facade. The problem that I have is the procedure that we currently have in place with our demo delay bylaw, which seems super cut and dry to me, that the building department or the building commissioner will have a set of criteria by which she will either issue a demolition permit or a permit for, doing renovations, right? A building permit. Demolition, building. There's two streams. And I don't know what triggers for the building commissioner specifically, whether someone gets a demolition permit or has to require a demolition permit or a building permit. And if 25% of the exterior requires a demolition permit, then we're fine. But if not, then we're altering the procedure. And I think it could be confusing to the building commissioner as to when, I think it's a pretty big difference in what we have in front of us right now, which says every application for a demolition permit for a historically or architecturally significant building shall be filed with the building inspector and shall contain the following, and that triggers everything that comes after. And if 25% of the facade doesn't trigger a demolition permit, I don't know if it flows with the current bylaw. That's my problem.
So our protocol has to be in line with what the building department is following, or ours isn't that relevant?
Currently,
Yeah,
yes.
I agree.
So what does the building department use to determine whether a person requires a demolition? And in a way, it's been a comfort to me to think that this nuanced distinction is taken away from us. It's like, there's a demolition permit or there's not. If there's a demolition permit, you talk to us. If not, you don't.
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't have the answer to it.
Yeah.
I do know. So, for instance, building permits are generally to either construct something new or to renovate within the existing footprint.
Correct.
Demolition permits mean alteration of the existing footprint, either to demolish what's there to make it bigger or to demolish what's there to make it smaller. So there are circumstances where you would have both a building and a demolition permit.
Right.
So I do think that in some ways to define, the problem is when this was written, we use this language, we're trying to use this language to define substantial. So that there's no question about, well, I didn't think that was substantial. I got a demolition permit to do X and I didn't think it was, substantial. I just think that needs to be defined in some sort of way. But I'm happy to punt this off to Aldo.
I think that's a good idea.
And
in
also
fact,
clarify with Lori at the building commissioner's office about this. But if we leave just aside for a moment, let's leave this just aside for a second, the percentage issue, just kind of quickly, just skimming down this thing. So it also clarifies that we don't have anything to say about the exterior, the interiors, we don't have anything but to say in the interior. It gives some sample questions. So what I'd like to do is just, gauge the commission's viewpoint on the concept of this document as this sort of one sheet to give off. And then if we think that that is a good idea, then we can just get some clarification on trying to define this substantial, and maybe Aldo has other ideas. I'm not wedded to anything, but I just think whatever is done needs to be clarified so that folks don't,
I agree. I like the concept. I'm fully in favor of it. I think I did ask in my request for a legal opinion on 45 Highland. I also mentioned definition of substantial, and Aldo hasn't responded to that yet. He might have missed it.
Okay. All right. Well, so then, let's table this for now with the idea that everyone nodding that we just think the concept is a generally good idea.
Yeah, well, yes, with a comment. Very much in support of something to make it clearer and give people checklists. All of that is very useful and explicit too, which I like. The topic that Rebecca brought up is the one where we may have a gotcha and maybe nothing around it. But if indeed you can alter the front of a home without a demolition permit, you could defeat what we're trying to accomplish, which is 25% or less, by simply getting a building permit to put a porch on or whatever. And I don't think that at the moment there's any controls over building, only demolition. Am I correct?
No, no, I don't think we have purview there because we don't have any historic districts, and that would be something that would be regulated under a historic district if the town ever voted to do something like that to maintain the facades.
Mhm.
Our view is only to keep people from demolishing structures, and frankly, the initial intent was more to the whole structure, because that's normally what happens here.
Mhm.
People come and say, I'm going to tear down this house because I want to build a huge house or something. This partial demolition really hasn't come up much, but before it gets too far down the road, let's just say whatever we're going to say on this, so that really one of the things I've been kind of impressed with, for those of you who weren't around for this when this all came up years ago, folks initially were a little hesitant about this demolition delay bylaw, and there was some opposition. It passed with a 2/3 vote at town hall meeting, but there was a lot of opposition and a lot of people worried about it. And so far, it's been very successful. It has saved a number of houses where the owners have just simply decided to sell them or not to do those renovations. It's encouraged some levels of renovations that we never expected. And by and large, I think people have really worked within it well to make the town a better place. So I think a lot of the suspicions that initially were involved with this have gone away. And the only time we have problems is when the language isn't specific enough.
Mhm.
So to the degree that we can just make this crystal clear, people seem pretty happy to follow these regulations if we tell them ahead of time what they are.
Mhm.
So, I'd love by our next meeting to have something that we can give to Laura that just would go out and also would tell people of their legal obligation that they need to inform themselves about. If they think their house is old, it doesn't take much to write us or to look on Macris or to do whatever, to get this clarified. So I think that's, really important that people be notified. Hey, you got to look here. We have a demolition delay bylaw. All right. So does that?
So do we should come up with maybe an action plan on how to take this forward? Do you want to?
Well, the action plan I think would be for me to, Dean, if you just note this, for me to talk with Aldo and maybe Rebecca together, talk with Aldo to sort of figure out what you guys have talked about already and move this thing forward. And
So just so you know, there's a formal process to go through to get an opinion from Aldo. Now you have to request from Mark Purple, and Mark Purple sends the request and approves it or not.
I know that. I know
Okay.
that. But I presume that we're approved already to talk to him about this, right?
It depends whether he saw that question on the list.
All right. Well, if we would require another one, then we'll send another
Yeah.
one over. But
Okay.
it seems all part and parcel of the same question. So whatever. So I'll do that. And what was the second part? Oh, so I will educate myself. And maybe Jim, you want to come along with me on a conference call or something?
Yeah, that's exactly offer to help out if I can. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great because you've been so involved with Lori, and we'll get this clarified and report back to you guys about what we to answer this question, demolition versus.
Yeah, what process do they go through? And because, from right now, the way it works, it's pretty clear to us. It's either the building department determines what kind of permit you need, If it's demolition, we get it. That's it.
Yeah, well, if there's a crack, something will fall through it somewhere.
That's right.
So we'll get this settled.
Super.
Okay, so I think that's our action plan for the next meeting.
Yeah, and we need to set a date for the next meeting, and first we need to, I guess, we'll bring the Connells in and.
Yeah, I just, in terms of that, I would actually like to set dates for, go back to our practice of, we got out of the structure of COVID. We used to set the calendar for the entire year.
Mhm.
So I'd like to, maybe would it be reasonable now to actually set the calendar for the next 3 months, so that we can tell folks where we're going to be. What do you think about
Seems
that?
good. Yeah.
So does everyone have their calendars open?
Yep.
Okay.
It might be easy to nominally pick the second Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever we want. Just make it a.
Sometimes that works. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, next month. How do I move this forward? Okay. Okay. Of course, we're moving into the holidays.
Not that we can go anywhere or do anything, but.
Well, that's true. We do have our family, though, some of us, and, ducks, geese, other interesting creatures, dogs. November is coming right up here. Surprise, next week. I'd like to, if we're going to meet in November, which we probably should.
Oh, yeah. Early-ish, I think.
Early-ish. Dean, what day did we say that we were going to meet for the Historical Society?
Let me.
It was like the 9th or 10th, wasn't it?
Let me check on my calendar. Hold on 1 second.
11th, I think.
11th, Veterans Day.
It is
So-
the 11th.
What about the idea of meeting on the old idea of meeting on the second Tuesday of each month? That would be the 10th.
In general, that would work for me, but I can't meet on the 10th. I do have something that evening.
Okay.
But in general, I like that idea.
All right. We could meet on Monday the 9th. Monday the 9th.
Looks here.
Works.
Okay. All right. So for the next month, we'll meet on Monday the 9th. For December, that would be
And what time, Michael? 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, unless anyone has any questions.
That's fine.
That would be Tuesday. Let's see. No, December would be Tuesday the 8th.
Yes.
Everybody, any problems?
It works.
Okay. January would be Tuesday the 12th. Okay. If I don't hear anything, I'm just going to keep going.
That looks good.
February would be Tuesday the 9th. And March, I think that's all we need to do for now. March would also be Tuesday the 9th.
Looks good.
February's
Okay.
clear.
Good.
Okay. So Dean, will you send us out a calendar invite with those things
Or
for those dates? Okay.
I'm on mute.
That's right. Can you send us a calendar invite out for those dates? One of those ICS things that just pop into our calendars?
They're showing up already.
I will send. I will set that up in calendar, and for those dates, and add you to those dates.
Perfect.
Who
Actually,
besides
Amanda
who,
just
who
I'm sorry.
besides you currently here needs to be on there? And in order to do that, I will also need like your email
Mhm. The town
address
emails. Yeah.
to do that.
I will, or Jim will, or Annie will, or some of us. Annie, by the way, your town email's not working. Did you know that?
So it is working. Yeah, I had copied my email address on a message and I accidentally had a typo in it. So if you were replying all, it wouldn't go through, but ann.faff@southboroughma.com is certainly working.
Okay.
Okay.
And by the way, Dean, I just noticed that Amanda sent a bunch of invites, so maybe these are already out.
I didn't.
Really? They're
I
showing up.
selected, I think I had a calendar selected that I didn't mean to have selected.
Oh.
Oh, have we already been invited?
Well, I put them all on my iPhone calendar, and I must have had the historical, my town, it's connected to my town calendar, so I sent it to
Okay, I didn't get them, so it just let's make sure they're out again.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So our final little piece is update on 15 Main Street. So can you bring the folks in?
Yeah, Amanda, that one's actually got Joe Hubley's name in it.
Hey, Kristen and Karen, are you there?
Yeah,
Oh, you're muted.
can you hear me?
Yeah, just asked you to start video if you can.
Sure. Hi. Can you see me too?
Not yet.
No.
Oh. And Kristen's here too. You say hi.
Can't see anybody. Oh, well,
Oh, you know what? That was my fault. Hi.
there you are. Okay. You're in.
Okay. So where are we on this, I guess, is the question of the day. We got your questions, which are here. Let me just pull these up and over. And some of them will have been answered today, I think, if you've been listening. And some of them we can answer now. So do you think, should we just go through these questions now here?
Please, yes.
Yeah, so the dates we just set.
Okay, so the dates we just set for the rest of the year until March. Hang on, excuse me for 1 second here. I'm having a technical issue, which I just need to deal with. So hang on. A loose cord. There we go. I'm back. Sorry about that. I had a loose cord, as it were. Problem of old age. Okay. So when will the permit be issued? Entirely depends upon the completion of the pieces of the action plan. So at this point, we are waiting for you to get that back to us. Please explain item number 5 from the action plan. Do you have?
That's about a detailed effort by the buyer to find a buyer portion.
Okay. So what we're going to do is, I think what we'll send you is what we just adopted tonight, which actually goes through that in considerable detail. That explains sort of what the requirements are in terms of if you decide that you don't want to actually try to renovate the property, what your obligations are under the bylaw. So we'll send that out to you. And that should answer your questions. Otherwise, get back to us. What resources are available to aid homeowners in the action plan process? None to my knowledge. Presumably this is not too terribly onerous because all this stuff would have to be done in any type of redevelopment or new house construction or demolition. Most of this material will be required in terms of any new building permit or any demolition permit. So it should all be kind of floating around the ether. What is meant by facade? Facade is the viewable face of a house or any structure. It's the sides and walls and roof that you can see from any angle. So the front facade is the front and the porch and the roof gable. The side facade is the side and the windows and the roof. So it's literally just the side of the structure that's visible to the street. What is considered substantial is what we are in the process of just discussing. We are attempting to set a percentage for this or some other definition, because I agree that I think that is not terribly well defined. I think all of us agree. But generally, substantial means considerable alteration. I mean, we can argue about the percentage, but changes that move the structure off from what it currently is in any considerable way would be considered substantial. Do nonprofits adhere to the same guidelines?
I think so.
Well, yes and no. Educational institutions and religious organizations do not. They're protected by the Dover Amendment.
Right.
And so they are not subject to zoning.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
However, nonprofits of a general nature that are not these type of either educational or religious organizations are subject to zoning, I believe. Am I right on that? You know what? I'd have to ask on that. I don't think, that's a good question. I don't know if nonprofits actually own a property in general, other than the problem is nonprofits generally rarely actually, other than educational and religious organizations, own property. But I mean, it may very well be. I don't know. We'd have to find the answer to that question. However, in terms of your particular property, this doesn't apply because it's privately owned. But we can find that out, whether exactly what the amendment covers.
Yeah. Okay.
St. Mark's, for instance, does not. I mean, that, the churches do not.
Do not what?
Are not subject to zoning regulations for preservation issues.
Are you sure about that? Should we check?
Well, that I'm very sure about, because we know that St. Mark's is not subject to any of these things because of the properties they bought along Main Street. However, to their credit, they've actually agreed to preserve these houses and preserve the street facades and not make any major alterations to the ones they've purchased. And by and large, that's what Faith School has adhered to as well. I think that's the only issue that we've come across so far.
They're doing it voluntarily. That's what. Okay. Okay. So the reason I asked, are you finished with the questions, or?
Oh, sorry. The final question is: any consideration given to property owners who purchased prior to the inception of this law? The answer is no.
No. And number 5, what is the history of 15 Main? We already provided with the link to the cultural resources inventory that was done, I think in 2001. There was a detailed narrative of the history.
Yes, sorry, I missed 5.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Okay. Okay, where do we go from here?
Well, so now what we're waiting for are the action plan items, which are the information that was sent to you back in August that requests, I only have a copy of the revised one. So we're waiting for the statement of reasons, which details costs, in other words, why you want to tear down this property, what the issues are, and what the cost of remediation would be. We're waiting for redevelopment plans as to what you're intending to do with this structure. We're waiting for the most recent tax assessment, a real estate mortgage appraisal, a map of the property, a plot plan, signatures and proof of ownership, which we may or may not have, and the pictures that are keyed to a plot plan showing what you're doing. So I know the last time we talked, there was some talk about removing a portion of the structure or saving some of it or reducing the size. Those plans need to be clarified. And I think what we'd like to say is that we're hoping that for our next meeting, you can provide us with this information so that we can consider the request. Also, if you've decided that you don't want to try to do this renovation, then we'll move into the portion of this that that moves you into seeking other buyers for the property, potential buyers.
Okay, so in the last meeting, you mentioned that I could even just take pictures and, write something, take a picture and send it over to you. So I took 4 pictures of my house and marked them and sent them over to the commission. Do you have those pictures?
Yes, although, for this, because you're operating under the old one, we can do this sort of piecemeal, but what we really need to pull this together as a packet, because normally we would be meeting, we could share materials. We need to have everyone on the commission able to see what needs to be seen. And those pictures need to be tied to a plot plan so that we know what we're looking at. So you take the plot plan and it's like, oh, we're looking at the front, and you mark a big 1 on the plot plan and you say front view. What we sent you pretty well details that information. But I will send you this revised thing that we've adapted that is clearer and lists this stuff bing, 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 bing down the lines, and to put this together into a packet for us.
Okay, so I feel like we kind of changed horses midstream here, but let me go back to my original. I'm speaking to the Historic Commission. I'm asking your help collectively. You're all intelligent, educated, smart people that you've. This isn't the first time that you've worked on a historic property. This isn't the first time I've worked on a historic property, but it's the first time that I'm building my own home. And I keep going back to there's 2 problems that I have with trying to restore this house. Number 1, I think you just defined substantial as 25%. So in order to keep 25% of the facade, that it's still too large of a home for me. What I'm trying to do is to build a house very similar to the original house that was on the property, that was built in 1810. That's what I'm trying to build on the property.
May I just interrupt for a minute, Karen? I think we heard that last time. We do know that you would like to tear it down and build a replica sort of house, or a new home that is historically has an historic look. The problem is that's the process is the process.
Okay.
And this is what we have to go through by law. If you require a demolition permit from the building commissioner to do the work that you intend to do, then it triggers this process, and there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah, I understand that, and I respect that. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to just brainstorm with all of you, and for me, it always comes down to what's the intent, right? The intent of the historic bylaw is to preserve and protect a certain look in the village town center. It's not to prohibit change or advancement or, diminish property rights. It's just to protect and preserve a certain aesthetic look. So, no? Am I wrong about that?
I think it's more than a look.
Yeah, it's more than a look. And, you know, when one talks about the historic value of structures, one talks about the materials, the look, the history, the wear. I mean, you know, we're not trying to create some sort of Potemkin village here of, you know, new structures that look like old ones. What we're trying to do is preserve our historic houses to the best we can. And so when that bylaw was crafted, the idea was to preserve the actual physical structure, not the look of a structure. Because otherwise, you know, one could have just simply mandated zoning that said every house in Southborough has to look like an historic building.
Yeah.
That's not our intent.
Well, it's kind of like a catch-22, because what we're trying to preserve is a house that has been wildly expanded upon its original foundation. As a matter of fact, I don't understand why someone, the house the house that's there now, the structure that's there now is so, it's like, I don't know, like 2,000 square feet larger than the original home. So originally my intention was to tear it down and rebuild a nice house, a nicer, smaller house. But the other problem I have is it's financially. It is just astronomical to preserve a house that is plastic. It's just far more pleasing. It's just and less expensive to build a beautiful home by tearing down the existing one. But I guess what you're saying is the law does not provide a solution other than for me to sell my house. And I can't agree with that. I don't want to sell my house. I don't think that that's fair. It's something, it doesn't feel right to me. And thus far, the only people that want to buy my house are people that, nonprofits or, someone that wants to put in 4 units there. So I don't know.
I will say that if you're referring to St. Mark's or one of the other institutions, I think this would cause a considerable uproar if they were trying to do something like that. But, that's not, again, within our purview.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean by uproar if they're trying to do something like that.
Well, I mean, I don't think that putting in 4 units or, destroying a structure.
No, it's not St. Mark's. A developer wants to buy my property. I don't want to sell my property. I want to live in my property.
But just so
like you said excuse me?
I said, just so you know, a developer would go through this same process.
Yeah, I understand. I know. They have a different agenda than I do. This is my home. What I'm going to build at 15 Main Street, in 150 years, there will be another historic board that will say that was the Karen Canal house. But my house is, it has significant structural problems, water problems. It's not safe. I want to put in a circular driveway. Somewhere in this law, there must be some sort of room or consideration for homes that fall into this category. So I don't know when we started using plastic siding or double hung vinyl windows. I think it was the 70s. I don't consider that, I don't consider that historical or nice. And I'm not saying that insulting anybody that has those things. I don't understand what it is that we're trying to preserve.
Well, we're trying to preserve the structure. And granted, all houses of a certain age have had replacement windows, or most have had. All houses of a certain age have had additions. all houses of a certain age have had alterations.
Not all, but in this case, 15 Main Street, yes.
Yeah, well, many. I live in one, for instance, it's had, 3 major alterations, 1880, 1927. I mean, so, 1852. So, I mean, they generally do. But, again, we're talking here specifically about 15 Main Street, about what, we can and we cannot do. And, again, what has to be followed in order to have this happen is you need to give us the information that we've requested as we've requested it. And then, look at this issue of renovation. I think personally, and this is just my view, that a lot of these things can be accomplished. Water remediation can be accomplished, new windows can be accomplished, potentially moving the structure or reducing it can be accomplished. But there has to be a concrete plan. I mean, you have to submit to us some documentation. An architect needs to get involved, saying this is what we want to try to do with this. And I think if you look.
All right. In the last, I have to interrupt you. I feel like you've changed your tune from the last meeting, and you're all my neighbors. I think that what you're trying to do is wonderful, and I'm grateful that you're all volunteering your time to the town that I grew up in and hope to continue living in. But I'm appealing to you. Is there, other than keep the structure that's there now, that would cost a considerable amount of money for me to make watertight, safe, up to code, aesthetically pleasing. Other than that, I think this is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity for the Southborough Center to have a home that looks like the original house. Maybe other people will follow suit and do the same thing.
Well, it sounds to me like perhaps you're asking us to reverse our vote to preferentially preserve the home, which, the commission voted that the home should be preferentially preserved, which means that the process of the demolition bylaw is in place. And there's a time clock to run out after going through the steps that are required. If, once you've submitted the materials and you've made the decision you don't want to renovate and you've attempted to sell and everything, then if all of those things have been met, then it's possible a permit would be issued, assuming everything had been done at the end of the time period that is specified.
I can agree. I can agree to do everything that you've asked of me with the exception of number 5. I can't agree to it because it's unfair, and it might even be illegal. I don't know.
Well, it's definitely not illegal because this was approved by the Massachusetts Attorney General's office, and these type of demolition delay bylaws are adopted in many, many communities. So, I mean, the regulations. I'm
not a lawyer. I don't.
Well, neither are we. But obviously, this went through town council. It also went through. These bylaws all have to be approved by the state attorney general's office. And this language actually is almost identical to many other communities in the state. So the process is legal. I think what I'm trying to suggest to you is that the middle ground there is a middle ground here, and that is to come up with some architectural plans that preserve a portion of the existing structure visible from the street, that allows you to make the alterations that you want to make. Again, we're just talking about these front facades and the general appearance. I hear exactly what you're saying about, you want to tear it down and make a new one that looks better, blah, blah, but that we are not able via this law to give you that opportunity. We have to go down this process. We can't simply say, oh, we think that's a great idea, tear it down. Because it's a listed structure with a large history behind it of an important family in town that was, critical to Southborough's history. So we have to follow the letter of the law here as we follow it for everybody so that we're fair and we're asking the same of everybody equally. So, what I would ask you again is to, get up to number 5, send us that information. If you have plans and working with an architect, because you had suggested that that was a possibility of what renovations you could do to this structure without demolishing it entirely, send those along, because there's an out in the middle if that's a possibility. So, but you have to, we need the stuff we've asked from you because everyone has to do it. So we have to have it from you. And, assemble this stuff and assemble some plans. Okay,
so I'm hearing what you're saying, and so the pictures that I sent you, the question of substantial comes directly from my architect. So the pictures that I sent you, when you look at them, at the front of the house, if you were standing in the front of the house, the part of the house that's on the western portion of the house, the front of it, that is the line that sits back a little bit off the property. That's where I would like the front of the house to be. So could I then get rid of the eastern side of the house? Would that be considered substantial?
I don't think we can answer that in that way right now. I think what the big question is, to do that work of everything that you've circled, do you need a demolition permit?
Well, yeah, absolutely. You need a demolition permit because you're taking away substantial structures of the house. But so again, I think the problem is we can't answer these questions ad hoc. We need to have you submit an architectural plan, from the architect to say, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to remove this structure. We want to do this. This is what we're willing to do. We're willing to take the front facade and move it back 15 feet or whatever. But, this has to come in a holistic sort of way, because we get into trouble saying, okay, we think this is fine. We don't think this is fine. We need documentation in front of us, so we can't answer.
I'm hearing what you're saying, and I must have misunderstood when you told me last time that I could just send you pictures and something. Quite frankly, I am just trying to save myself tens of thousands of dollars, because, but the last question I have for you, at the end of this, I thought that the process was a 9-month process, and at the end of the 9-month process, I get my, because it's a demolition, it's not a demolition stop, right? Is that correct? So at the end of 9 months, I would get a demolition permit.
Not necessarily. Not unless you follow the provisions in the bylaw, and one of the provisions is to find alternate buyers. So
I'm not going to do that.
Well, then
I'm not going to do that.
Then we're stuck. Then we just hold until there's a resolution.
We hold to when?
We hold until whenever, because we need to go through the process of that. In order to get the building permit, you need to have demonstrated bona fide efforts to find someone else to purchase that property that's willing to do these restorations. And in the times that we have gone through this before, that has been done. And they did it, and they found that people weren't willing to do that, or they didn't want to do this, or whatever. And the demolition permit was granted. Or they provided plans to the historical commission that preserved significant amounts of the structure that allowed them to do the renovation that they were going to try to do. I mean, that's how this goes. If you don't want to proceed through the whole process of the demolition delay bylaw, I don't have any answer to you other than to say that, we can't instruct the building commissioner to grant a demolition permit.
Okay, I understand that. So, but do you happen to know what happens then? I think eventually I can tear my house down, right?
No.
Ever?
you know, quite frankly, no one's ever not done this. So I don't necessarily know what the result would be. I mean, ideally, we would want to work with you to create, you know, to do this. But, you know, if it comes to an impasse, it comes to some sort of legal impasse, and I'm not quite sure where that would be. We'd have to get counsel about that, but I would be hopeful that that wouldn't have to go down this route, and that with a set, you know, if you're determined to stay there and don't want to sell this, put it up to sale, then if we can get some architectural plans that satisfy the requirements of preserving the views from the street while still giving you the house that you like, I think, you know, I think that can happen. But we need the plans. We need to see, we need the documentation,
Okay.
we need the plans, and we need, and you know, this is money well spent with an architect, because frankly, you would have to hire an architect to do this anyway to build any other structure. So, you know, show us what you'd like to try to do, and we will try within the constraints of this law to accommodate you.
Okay. Can somebody get back to me with the definition of substantial? I think you just formulated it tonight. And
well,
what about?
I'm going to say it's going to take a little bit to get back to the actual percentage, but it's going to turn out to be some percentage of the facade. However, if you come back to us with plans, we can tell you. It'll almost assuredly it'll wind up being some percentage between 50 and 25%. Where exactly that is, I don't know. I mean, we have to get legal counsel on that.
Karen, for clarity, I think you were assuming that anything that left 25% under the 25% number was good enough. No, it's anything that impacts it by 25% or more.
Yes, impact. Left is 25% is not, no. That would be a 75% demolition. 25% remaining. So that would be more than substantial. That would be almost total. So
I'm confused. Can you dumb that down for me? Wait, hold on one second. I want to make sure.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, I know. Thank you. But I'm not giving you a specific definition because I told you we need to go back and get an actual percentage that we agree on. But what I think our instructions are clear tonight is that send us some plans so we can actually look at this stuff. And if it comes, you know, what we've told you is that we need to preserve the street facades of this house. And that, you know, if portions of it are potentially up for, you know, changed, you know, that may be fine. But that's only something we can talk about once we see the plans. So that's the next step.
I respect that. I hear what you're saying. It just feels a little bit to me like it feels like you're not being able to tell me how much, needing to see the plans before you can determine whether you're going to figure out if something is substantial or not, just feels weird. But maybe I'm misunderstanding that. Maybe what you're saying is that town council has to tell me how much substantial is.
No, town council will tell us, you know, whether they agree with our definition. And I think we have to agree internally. But I think, as I said, the eventual definition of the clarification, I should say, of substantial will become somewhere between changes that affect more than between 25 and 50% of the facade. So, but, you know, for you, this doesn't matter anyway, because the demolition permit, this is only about triggering a demolition permit, this definition of substantial. You've already applied for the permit. So this whole discussion of substantial is already passed.
Exactly. So it doesn't really matter, because if you require a demolition permit to do the work, the process is the same. It doesn't matter what substantial means. The process is the same.
When we were discussing that earlier, our only intention was to try to help people who are undertaking this type of renovation, demolition work where there's this sort of cloudy gray area. But this doesn't.
But that's me. That's what I'm trying to.
No, you've already applied for the permit. So it isn't you. We're talking about folks that are thinking of applying, or, you know, clarification also for the building commission.
Okay, all right.
I mean,
So because I've already applied, I can tear down part of my house, just not more than a substantial part.
What kind of permit if you're getting a permit from the building department to raise your structure,
Mhm.
then this is triggered and the process is in place. Doesn't matter what percentage it is.
You know what? I have to thank you so much. You just cured the problem for me. I can tear down the front of my house, not the back part of the house. And
No.
therefore I don't need a demolition.
No. You can't tear down anything until we go through this process.
But can I just, get out of this demolition and apply for a renovation?
Yes, and that's what we were talking about previously in the sense of if you are renovating the structure, what percentage of it, that's where the definition of this comes in.
Okay.
But I got to tell you that getting a building permit to renovate the structure means keeping it on the same footprint, not moving it back, not demolishing any sections of it.
No, you just cured a huge problem for me. The back of the house, I can keep the back of the
Not, well,
You can't.
Not in the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish. Remember, we were describing the facade from the street. So that means no change, no substantial change to the way it looks from the street. You know, tearing the front down, leaving the back place, that's your private yard. That's not the intent here.
Oh.
So
I'm
again, so let me just bring this back, and I think then we're going to have to conclude this. But this will all become crystal clear if you just simply send us some plans about what you're going to try to do. If you come to any town board or committee, the zoning board of appeals, the planning board, they require before you even come to have a full set of plans submitted to them for their review so they can ask questions. The problem is we're just speculating on stuff. Can I tear apart? Can I do this? Can I do that? We don't, come show us. And then, we'll try to help you, move this thing forward. But, I kind of feel like we're going around and around with this. We need to see some architectural plans that shows specifically what you're trying to accomplish. And if those architectural plans say, wow, we're not going to alter the footprint, we're just going to do stuff internally, then you don't need a demolition permit. You're out of talking to us at all, and you deal with a building inspector with a building permit. But again, the caveat is you're not altering the facade or the demolishing any part of the existing structure.
Okay, I think thank you.
Okay. All right. So, our next meeting, what day again did we say that this was going to be? I'm sorry, I lost my track. The 9th?
The 9th.
So can you guys come to us with the stuff in the action plan up to number 5 with the map, all the photographs, the stuff, and get your architect to have some plans drawn up for us by then? Or do you want to come back to us in the next meeting after that?
No, I can come on the 9th.
Okay. And will you have then plans of architectural plans of what you're proposing?
They won't be, yes.
Okay.
They
I mean,
won't.
we don't need, what we would need to see are, essentially, not obviously detailings of systems and structures and this and that, but, proposed renovations, alterations to the facade, of the house. Again, also your architect can send us some questions if they would like that to come in writing, but, we can attempt to, answer that. But if you can come to that, bring that information to our next meeting, including all this other stuff, that'll really help move this thing along.
Okay, thank you for your patience with me. I don't understand. I understand the intent. I just don't understand the process. So thank you for really patient.
It's a little confusing. And remember, we're all, citizen volunteers here, and we all have the same idea, which is to preserve the historic character of the town. I think there's a compromise here to be found. I just think that we have to play by the letter of the law to make sure that everyone has equal treatment and that we're not making any exceptions here. So we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting with this documentation and moving this forward.
Thank you. Okay. Take care.
Okay. Anything other legal business that is above and in front of the Historical Commission?
Nobody waiting to get in?
Nobody waiting to get in. Well then, for my very first time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, Annie, yeah?
Can I just ask a
Sure.
quick question? After our last meeting, Kate sent around something about the sign program, and I'm new, so I'm just getting up to speed with all of this. Is there a deadline for submissions for that program that she was promoting?
No, it's mostly
I don't think
capacity
so.
limited. We have a number of signs already made. There's money, earmarked to make more if we need to. So it's really a question of, I think we planned up to 10 homes this year, and there's only been about 5 that have applied.
Okay,
Right.
kind of like applications on a rolling basis.
I think, yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we're trying to encourage people to put these signs out. So
Yeah, yeah.
anything that we can
Am I
do.
allowed to nominate people?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, the process is to get historic houses labeled.
Yes.
So,
And
Yeah.
there's a kind of a 3 or 4 bulleted list of things that we should see to take a look at, as a house and why and so on.
Perfect.
yeah, I mean, if we have the incredibly exciting experience of having 50 applications for 10 signs, then we'll have to do a little triage as to how to distribute these things. But as it stands now, I think we have some signs available, and we'd love for people to take them on.
Mhm.
We'd also love for people to pay for them if they are able to do so, because we'd like to keep our sign maker in business, because he's a great guy.
I have a sign, and it is so lovely. They're such nice signs.
They are nicely done, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh, they're beautiful. I actually got one myself. I had made one my own many, many years ago that turned out to have the wrong date on it.
He made sure my
Someone got grantor or grantee mixed up back there in the registry. Dean, don't write that down.
Stop writing about 2 minutes ago.
that part that we don't need in the official record, even though we're being recorded.
Yeah, we should adjourn. And
I think it's
All
time
right.
to adjourn. Okay, so thank you all for your time here this evening and your service and all the good work that has gone into this up to this point. I'm really looking forward to moving forward with all of you. It's just your enthusiasm is infectious, and as is your patience as well. So I thank you all. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
And there's a second from Jim. So I say to you, bonsoir.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Laissez du bon temps relais.
Aha.